Under Xi'an's dusty fields in March 1974, the shovel of a farmer broke something that would rewrite the past. Yang Jifa was excavating a well in the course of one of the driest decades in recent history when his shovel hit what he perceived as pottery. But when he swept away 2,000 years of dirt, a face appeared from the shadows, not of terracotta, but of a warrior suspended in time. What Yang found was not only shattered pottery, but the rim of the most amazing archaeological discovery of the 20th century, a complete underground army of more than 8,000 life-size terracotta warriors, one of a kind, one standing watch over China's first emperor for more than 2,000 years. This wasn't a tomb. It was an entrance to the imagination of a man who thought he could defeat death itself. In order to comprehend this underground wonder, we have to travel back to 259 BCE, when a youth by the name of Zheng was born into a world of perpetual war. China was divided into 7 fighting kingdoms, embroiled in what historians refer to as the Warring States period, a period where survival was by conquest and weakness was extinction. Zheng ascended to the throne of Qin, one of the most warlike states in ancient China, at the mere age of 13. But this was not sufficient for the young king. He had an impossible dream: to bring the whole of China under a single standard, to be the first emperor of a unified state. By 221 BCE, through a mix of masterful military tactics, brutal political intrigue, and technological breakthroughs, he had made the impossible a reality. He adopted the name Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of Qin, and with it, he gained not only an empire, but also an obsession that would characterize his rule and his posthumous life. Power, though, had a cost that pursued Qin Shi Huang during every waking moment: the realization that his rule, as everything earthly, must come to a close. History informs us that the emperor became more and more fixated on immortality, seeking out alchemists and mystics, drinking mercury-containing elixirs he hoped would make him immortal. Ironically, the very concoctions probably shortened his lifespan. But Qin Shi Huang was not a man to embrace defeat, even from death itself. If he could not live forever, then he would rule forever. Ancient Chinese thought believed that life after death was a continuation of life on earth, and if so, then an emperor would require an army, a court, and every appurtenance of power in the world below. It was this belief, this reluctance to let go even in death, that conceived one of the most ambitious undertakings of humanity: the building of an eternal empire underground. The preparations started almost immediately following Qin Shi Huang's ascension to the throne as emperor, approximately 220 BCE. This was not an ordinary tomb building. It was the construction of an underground empire. According to historical records, more than 700,000 workers, comprising experienced craftsmen, laborers, and convicts, worked for almost 4 decades in order to finish this underground marvel. The site selected was Mount Li, some 30 kilometers east of the emperor's capital, a location chosen not only for strategic considerations, but for symbolic ones. Located halfway between heaven and earth, appropriate for a ruler who considered himself the son of heaven. The scale of the project was enormous. The central tomb complex occupies more than 56 square kilometers, an area larger than many of China's ancient cities. But it was the guard army that would be most extraordinary. Master craftsmen toiled in assembly line style, producing thousands and thousands of terracotta warriors, each nearly 6 feet tall, each weighing about 400 pounds, each made with loving attention to detail that would render them suitable defenders of the divine emperor. What makes the terracotta army remarkable is not its sheer size, but its uniqueness. No 2 faces are identical among the tens of thousands of warriors that have been found. Each figure has unique facial features, expressions, and even hairstyles that allude to the varied ethnicities and provinces of Qin Shi Huang's extensive empire. The detail is stunning. You can distinguish the tread on their boots, the individual scales on their armor, and the complicated braiding in their hair. The soldiers were first painted in bright colors, glowing reds, dark blues, rich purples. Though these colors had lost their luster within hours of exposure to air in the excavation process. Archaeologists have revealed infantrymen, archers, horsemen, charioteers, and generals, each laid out by military formation and status. The horses are likewise splendid, with flared nostrils and keen expressions that appear to charge into combat. This was not mass production. This was art on an imperial scale, a reflection of Chinese craftsmen's skill and the boundless resources of an emperor who would settle for nothing less than perfection for his eternally watchful guardians. In 210 BCE, in the course of his tour of his eastern provinces, the inevitable happened. Qin Shi Huang passed away, perhaps as a result of mercury poisoning from his elixirs of immortality. News of his death was concealed for months while his corpse was carried back to the capital with cartloads of fish spread around it to keep the reek of decay at bay, an ironic touch to the life of a man who had wanted to overcome mortality. The burial ceremony was a spectacle that matched the emperor's grandiose vision. According to historical records by Sima Qian, written a century later, the emperor's tomb chamber was a replica of his empire. Mercury rivers flowed through bronze representations of the Yellow and Yangtze rivers. Precious stones created a star-studded ceiling representing the heavens, and mechanical crossbows were positioned to shoot any intruders. The Terracotta army was entombed in their subterranean chambers, poised to fight for their emperor in the afterlife. Next was the last, sinister act. To keep the secrets of the tomb, all the workers who had built the inner chambers were entombed alive within the complex, so that the whereabouts of the emperor's riches would perish along with them. For more than 2,000 years, the Terracotta army was buried under soil and years. The Qin dynasty itself did not last beyond 15 years of the first emperor's death, disintegrating into civil war and yielding to the Han dynasty. Centuries went by, and the site of the tomb was the subject of myth. Local tillers of the land occasionally unearthed fragments of ancient pottery and bronze weapons when they worked their fields, but few made the connection between these finds and the fabled first emperor. The landscape around Mount Li had a reputation for being covered in weird soil and the mysterious reluctance of locals to dig wells more than a certain depth, as if some shared cultural memory cautioned them against disturbing what was below. Historical accounts spoke of the tomb, but its location was unknown. As Egyptian pyramids and other monuments throughout the ancient world fell to the passage of time and the interventions of man, Qin Shi Huang's army slept peacefully, sheltered by earth and silence, awaiting the day when they would see light again. That moment arrived in the guise of Yang Jifa's frantic search for water in 1974 during a drought. It was a practical necessity that turned into the archaeological find of the century. When Yang's spade hit the first warrior's head, he and his fellow peasants at first believed they had hit fragments of an ancient kiln. It wasn't until local archaeologists were called in that the enormity of the find was realized. As the digging started, the underground tombs opened their secrets step by step. First hundreds, then thousands of terracotta soldiers in organized military formation. Pit 1, the largest pit, had more than 6,000 soldiers and horses in battle formation. Pit 2 uncovered cavalry and archer units, and Pit 3 seemed to be a command center with senior officers. Every new find sent shockwaves throughout the world of archaeology. Here stood not only a tomb, but a snapshot of ancient Chinese military structure, artistry, and the megalomania of absolute rule. The find made headlines worldwide, and overnight, the world's attention was centered on this serene farming village that had unknowingly been sitting atop one of history's finest treasures. It has been close to half a century since the initial find, and the Terracotta army is still slowly uncovering its secrets. Modern technology has made it possible for archaeologists to learn that the warriors were first brightly colored, with pigment still present on a few of the figures. Ground-penetrating radar and remote sensing have made it apparent that the excavated warriors are only a small percentage of what is underneath. Thousands more are estimated to be buried and in line to await future generations of archaeologists equipped with superior preservation methods. Perhaps most tantalizingly, the emperor's true burial chamber, spoken of in ancient works as holding unimaginable riches and rivers of mercury, is still sealed. Advanced technology has now verified the existence of mercury vapor in the earth above the likely tomb site, adding weight to ancient descriptions. Chinese officials have decided to leave the central tomb shut, not out of respect for the dead so much, as because existing preservation technology cannot ensure the integrity of whatever treasures are inside. The choice is an astonishing exercise in archaeological restraint, preserving mystery for the future instead of catering to short-term curiosity. Standing in front of the Terracotta army today, tourists are faced with more than an archaeological marvel. They are faced with a mirror reflecting humans' perpetual struggle with mortality and the extremes to which power will stretch to overcome death. Qin Shi Huang's army on the ground reflects common fears and desires that are universal to mankind across cultures and centuries. Here was a man who had united a country, made currency and writing uniform, constructed roads and canals that stood for millennia, and yet could not embrace the one reality that unites all mankind. We are mortal. His terracotta warriors are at once a testament to man's achievement and a reminder of the foolishness of attempting to conquer death by human will. They remind us that empires give way, dynasties collapse, but art and human imagination last. The peasants who unearthed those warriors have presented the world with more than an archaeological find, presented us with a glimpse of the absolute power's soul and human search for immortality. Ultimately, Qin Shi Huang attained a kind of immortality, not through mercury elixirs or terrestrial authority, but through the long-lasting amazement of human imagination and the eternal fascination of mystery. Why do you believe that humanity is so attracted to immortality and the afterlife? Did we learn anything from Qin Shi Huang's ambitious bid to reign forever beyond the grave? Or do we continue to pursue our versions of terracotta armies? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this dive into China's underground secret as much as I did, subscribe for further deep dives into history's greatest enigmas. Next week, we will venture into another tomb that has fascinated human imagination for thousands of years, the Egypt's Great Pyramid unopened chambers. Until then, keep in mind that the greatest riches are not necessarily gold and silver, but what they reveal about who we are and who we dream to become.